Oh, hi, Mark. Alright, so today I'm here to talk about another Asian horror movie. Not Japanese this time, but instead Singaporean. Which, can't say I've ever seen a Singaporean horror movie. Definitely I don't know. Seems like just the most random country. Apparently this was Singapore's first horror movie, at least that's what it says on the back here. If you can read that, which you probably can't, but I don't know. So yeah, I'm here to talk about The Maid, which is a Singaporean horror film. And I'll tell you something, when I started this film, I wasn't actually thinking that I was going to do a review for it. I've been watching horror movies all day. You know, it's my day off, but, well, one of. But, like, out of all the horror movies I watched today, I didn't think The Maid would be the one that was like, wow, I kind of have to. I kind of have to after that. Yeah, especially since it's like 1:30 in the morning now. Like, I'm getting ready for bed, but I figured before I go to bed, I'd do a quick little review of this. Maybe not so quick. I don't know. I don't know yet. But The Maid is about a young girl, I believe her name is Rosa, who is 18 years old, and she goes to Singapore. I don't believe it says where she's from, but she goes to Singapore to be a maid to this family, presumably to send money home to her family, because she has a sick brother, and so we're kind of led to believe that this is why she's doing this. I guess she's making good money over there, and she needs it to help her brother out. But, well, on top of that, I guess she did it to see the world, as she says in this. But, and anyway, this maid begins to have visions. Well, not so much visions as she's literally seeing ghosts. And over time, her seeing ghosts kind of turns into, yeah, I guess her seeing visions, horrific visions of what happened to the last maid that they had. And so let's just get into some of the stuff that I didn't like about this movie, I guess. Because what's interesting is I actually wasn't huge on this film until the last 15 minutes, I'd say. I would say for the first while of this movie, it is very basic. It is a very basic horror film that, you know, it has the jump scare stuff. It has the creepy ghost girl stuff that you expect from Asian horror movies. It has loud noises and loud sounds. And that's kind of what I didn't like about this film at first, is it portrayed itself as it was going to be very generic. And I guess, in a sense, a lot of this movie was pretty generic, because, I mean, you can't just have an amazing ending and expect that to make up for the genericness of the rest of your movie. Sixth Sense. Actually, I'm bullshitting. The ending in The Sixth Sense wasn't that amazing either. But yeah, most of this movie felt very much so like your typical horror movie. There were a lot of jump scares, some of them effective, some not so much. There was also something strange with the sound design, where it almost seemed like every once in a while noise would just cut out, or something similar to that, but mostly it's just the noise will randomly cut out at spots. At least that's how it sounded to me, and I am not huge on that. Yeah, it's really strange to me, and it kind of put me off from scenes in this movie. And speaking of the sound design, another weird thing that they seem to do is there are these small sounds, at least sounds that should be small, that aren't small in this movie, if you know what I mean. Like, someone will be opening a door and the door will be creaking, and in most movies that door creaking is, I mean, it might be loud, but it's not blow up your speakers loud. In this movie, the door creaking seems to be just as loud as the screams. I don't know if that was just me. Maybe I'm out of my mind, but that's how it seemed to me, is these small sounds that just shouldn't have been that loud were kind of ridiculously loud in this film. But it was entertaining enough, I will say that. It's not as though this movie feels like a complete and total waste of time up until the last 15 minutes. This movie is entertaining. It's not anything mind-blowing, again, until the ending. And, you know, I think if you're going in and you want an entertaining horror film like I wanted, I think you'll be perfectly fine with most of the Maid. But then I think in the end you're going to end up liking it a lot more than you did in the beginning. So that's all I'm going to say there. I'm going to go into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen The Maid, get out of here. Go watch The Maid, or if you don't care if I spoil the movie for you, here's the spoilers. And realistically, I'll just be talking about the ending. Well, the end 15 minutes here. Because it's so packed full of shit. And the thing is with this movie, I don't have a lot to talk about for the non-spoiler section. Because like I said, it's all pretty generic stuff. If you've seen one horror movie like this, you've seen all the horror movies like this. Which is why it's like, I don't feel the need to discuss all these little tiny details that have happened throughout the movie, but the ending, on the other hand. Sorry, guys. Anyway, the ending. So, let's, like, dial it back to the beginning and the end, which I would say is when it starts unraveling what happened to Esther. Esther was the previous maid to this family. And up until this point, we were led to believe that Esther had run away. Now, we had been seeing visions of Esther, like I said. And honestly, I think these visions kind of led us to believe that she hung herself, which is, I think, what they wanted you to believe. But that's not what happened at all. And it really escalates in this particular scene, which is kind of the beginning of the end for me, where she's having a dream, and she's been having bad dreams throughout the film, but this particular dream seems to be Esther trying to communicate with her and tell her what happened. And And basically what had happened was the family, at least this is how it's presented in the dream, I guess the family just had enough of Esther, and they covered her up in cloth, and they tied a cloth around her head, poured alcohol on her, and burned her alive. But then later, there's another reveal on top of the reveal that this family is messed up. There is another reveal that shows us that they didn't just do that just to do that. Which, you would think that Esther would have told Rosa that, right? Like, you would think so, because I think Esther was kind of trying to help Rosa, but either way, that wasn't the whole story. And so the whole story turns out, and this comes directly from the mouth of the mother in the film, who is referred to throughout the entire film as Mum, I think. Is that just the thing that nannies do? Because they do that. She does that in The Omen too. The nanny in The Omen. Is that just the thing that they do? They refer to the woman of the household as Mum? No, it's weird to me. But what happened is their son, who is developmentally stunted up here, is like, he's essentially just a giant man baby. He's a large man child, and even more than myself, except that he's literally mentally a child. And he, what was the quote from the movie? She's like, yeah, no, obviously this isn't the direct quote, but it was something to the effect of, yeah, we all know that Asun is basically a child, but sometimes we forget that he's also a man. And it cuts to a flashback, and it turns out that Asun raped Esther. And Asun was kind of a sympathetic character throughout the film. Kind of a character that you're like, okay, even if this family turns out to be a sack of shit, this guy's not, because he's stunted. That all goes out the window in that scene. That all goes out the window in that scene. Even if you're stunted, like, even as a child, you have an idea of what is correct and what is incorrect. You have an idea what is good and what is evil. Even as a small kid. Like, as a small kid, I could have told you that rape is bad. So this is an evil character. This automatically makes Asun a villain. And then his parents are even worse about it, because they're like, oh, my son violated you? That's cool. How about we just burn you alive right quick? Which, by the way, is a horribly mean way to kill somebody. Like, I understand through the perspective of someone that desperate, and I guess a little on the crazy side, obviously, because you don't do that to someone unless you're freaking psychotic. I understand why they did it, why they killed her. But why did they burn her alive? That is one of the cruelest things that you could have possibly done. Like, they have knives in the house. Stab her in her sleep or something. Then again, I guess she wouldn't have slept in the house again, having what happened to her. But okay, stab her while she's awake, in the heart, in the jugular, in the lungs. Like, it is not hard to find a more humane way to do this. Like, they took like one of the meanest ways they possibly could, and they're like, yep, that's the method. So I don't get that. I mean, the parents are obviously evil human beings, but then we get the third twist of the movie, right? I think it's the third twist, because first we get the twist that the parents actually killed the previous maid. And then we get the twist that Ah-soon raped the previous maid before the parents killed her. And then we get the twist that Ah-soon committed suicide after he saw what happened, what his parents did to Esther. So this whole movie, Ah-soon has been a ghost. Which kind of works and it kind of doesn't. In scenes it seems to work, like where she's at the restaurant and, or whatever that is. It looked like a restaurant to me. And she's sitting down at the table and she asks Ah-soon if he wants some rice or whatever she asked. And she gets up to go get him some, and he leaves, and it's like he just disappeared. Or like in that same scene, the waiter spills something on him, and Ah-soon's like, "Are you blind?" You know, like he gets real upset about it, and the waiter doesn't react to him at all, and no one else around there seems to hear him. So it works in that sense, but then it also seems to kind of not work. In the sense that if Ah-soon is a ghost, then why is he freaked out by seeing ghosts? I kind of think we're led to believe that Ah-soon doesn't know he's a ghost, but if he's been a ghost for, I think they say Esther had been dead for a year or so. Well, they say she's been missing for about a year. But we know as an audience that she's been dead for about a year. And so they say that Ah-soon killed himself soon after Esther was murdered. Which begs the question, this whole time he didn't know he was dead? This whole time. Like, there was never a situation where he was like, "This is a little funny. Never seen this place before." You know, there was never an afterlife. What was he doing in between the time that he killed himself and he showed up back at the house? Because we're led to believe that his spirit just kind of shows up back at their house, I think after his funeral or something. So that doesn't really make any sense. He didn't know he was dead. And furthermore, like, none of these other ghosts seem to communicate with each other. So why is he sitting next to this old lady on the side of the road, and then, oh, big reveal, the old lady's a ghost, and now he's freaked out, and that didn't make a lot of sense. That didn't make a lot of sense at all, actually. you would think that Ah-soon would know that he's a ghost. I don't know. Guess I'm no ghost expert, but just seems it should be that way to me. But he doesn't. So it works in some places and it kind of doesn't in others. So then, after these big reveals, Rosa, the current maid, the titular maid, basically like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, you know, like I gotta go. And so she goes back to the place, packs all her crap, sees that her letters haven't been being sent out, etc., etc. And she runs down the street, but for some reason she faints next to the mailboxes. Now, this has me wondering, did they give her something that was spiked? Because I can't recall her eating or drinking anything before she found all this out and ran out there. It appeared to me as though she just fainted. And they take her back to the house. They're sitting... Was that the house? Because it was warehouse-like, and I never noticed the house being like that before. I don't know. They take her back somewhere, and they're all eating dinner. And they're dishing her up food. They're like, here, eat. And out of nowhere, like, she tries to eat, she coughs it up, and out of nowhere she just yells, I know what happened to Rosa. Because they had lied to her earlier in the film. And she runs to the door. And the door is locked. And basically shit hits the fan from there. I guess their plan is to force her to marry their dead son. And the only way they can do this is by getting her to agree to it before she dies. And of course she ain't gonna agree willingly, so they basically try to torture her to make her agree to it. And then they try to make her feel obligated to do it because they know she has a sick brother. They're like, hey, we can get your brother the medical attention he needs if you just agree to do this shit. Luckily she doesn't, and the ghost of Esther ends up kind of coming in and seeking vengeance on these people. And actually it was Ah-soon who kind of first starts a little bit of vengeance. I don't think he was vengeful in that moment. I feel more like he was just enraged and, you know, kind of lost control. But I think he realized what was going on as far as like what has transpired, as far as like what happened to not Rosa, Esther. Because he seemed to forget. I think the whole film, Ah-soon thought that Rosa was Esther, and then I think he remembers what happened to Esther, and, you know, he kind of rages out and he pushes the dad a little bit or hits him or something like that, and I think it is the ghost of Esther that actually ends up setting him on fire, and he burns to death. So there you go. Get you some of that poetic justice. And then basically Rosa, was able to escape her bindings. I think she was just able to undo them with her teeth or something. But she gets the hell out of there. Obviously. As anyone would. And the mom comes chasing after her down the street with a knife. And she gets hit by a bus. Which I was basically cheering at that point. I was like, hell yeah. Like, get what you deserve, lady. And that's pretty much where the film ends. Rosa is able to go back to her family from whatever country she had originally come from, and the entire evil family is dead, which kind of a nice happy ending there. I think it's happy. And not only does she get to go back where she came from, but she's actually taking, I think, the ashes of Esther with her. And so, Esther gets to go home in a sense, too. But, yeah, that movie had, like, 3 or 4 twists in it, which is pretty crazy. And every one, you're like, oh my god. And, I mean, as it's ramping up these twists, you do feel a little anxiety. You're like, oh, no. No. And, it's really effective in that way. I gotta say, this movie was unexpected. At the end of the day, I still didn't love the first while of it, which is gonna hurt the grade, because just because you have an incredible final act doesn't mean that I'm just going to automatically forgive the fact that most of the film was generic. But I will say that I'll say that final act brought this movie up probably a solid point. I will say that before that, it was probably about a 6, maybe a 5.5 even. But because of that crazy chain of twist after twist after twist, which I thought was really well done and well executed, this movie's going to be a 7 for me now. Which is still, you know, it's pretty up there. So, The Maid, Singaporean horror film. Good stuff, for sure. I really recommend you check it out if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, then why did you watch the spoiler section of this video? I guess if you haven't checked it out already, I don't necessarily suggest that you check it out, because you just watched my video, and, well, if, you know, does your guys' hair do this? I'm sorry, this ain't a damn hair video, but not that I'll ever do one of those. But I tell you what, it drives me batshit when just a clump of my hair just decides to do that. That is the single most incredible thing I have ever seen in my life. Oh my god. Okay. Oh god, alright. Yeah, no, I recommend the movie. I think you guys should seriously give it a watch. Really creepy movie with a great ending. And I will catch you guys on the next one.